Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And this is a rarity. Well, it actually happens in the real world more than it happens on air, but we are actually divided on our opinion about what's going on with Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast. Now, there have been rumors for years, people said we're full of it, rumors for years that maybe Hasbro would prep Wizards of the Coast for a sale. And there is a shuffle at the top at Hasbro, and it does seem to me, anyway, I did a video about this a couple of weeks ago, that they're bringing in people from Microsoft. It does seem like they're getting ready to do something with Wizards of the Coast, possibly related to the rumors of the sale. And now there is one of the investors of Hasbro coming out and saying that they should spin Wizards of the Coast off into its own company.
What I said was, I think you have valid points, but I don't think Hasbro can afford to lose Wizards of the Coast, because actually right now, that's the only thing they've got going for them for the most part. Yeah,
things are not great at Hasbro, and yeah, their bottom line has looked pretty good because a lot of people were playing games during the pandemic.
Plus, they just promoted the person from Wizards of the Coast to run Hasbro, and why would they cut off that initiative? Why would they cut off all that when that was their baby? Like, yeah. I'm more inclined to think they're not going to sell it because I don't think they can. Like, I don't think they're in a position to be able to afford to do so.
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, something is up.
I agree with that. Something is definitely up.
Something is up. And again, going back to these rumors from, God, I think I saw it on a message board in like 2018 that there were rumors that Hasbro was going to sell Wizards of the Coast off because they frankly didn't know what to do with them. And at the time, a lot of video game developers were looking for IP, and having, Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering would look pretty good. And we've got, Sony and Microsoft out there buying up everybody. And then they started bringing in some people from Microsoft.
Well, that's not to say that someone from Microsoft might not just, they might not just roll Hasbro into like Microsoft or something.
I don't know.
But Wizards of the Coast is like a big, like their big thing right now. Like, that's where all their money's coming from. The majority of their money's coming from. If they would sell that, then they'd be in deep doo-doo.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about this because, we thought this was kind of over and done with, and we missed this. We've actually been pretty busy the last couple of days, but one of their hedge fund companies, investors, activist investors, is actually urging Hasbro to spin off WotC into its own company. So we'll talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Over 258,000 subs.
Woohoo!
Thank you so much for the support. We do talk about tabletop and video games. Not a whole lot, but we've been talking about the stuff, more lately because there's a lot of weirdness in the tabletop scene. There's a lot of weirdness in the video game scene, and we've been talking about all these companies kind of merging together.
I think there's a lot of weirdness in calling it WotC, because that sounds like something else.
It sounds like a disease. That's what everybody calls it, though.
Yeah, we're like a bingo, WotC.
WotC.
I don't know. I'm not going to refer to it as that because I find that annoying. Anyway,
so we've been kind of following this, and we wondered, if a lot of the weirdness around Wizards of the Coast and these bannings and silencing critics and all this shit, if it had something to do with the rumors that they were going to be prepped for sale. And the thing is people are like, why would you sell something when it's doing so well? If you look at the other side of it, you're like, oh, what comes up must come down. So you sell high.
No, I think, that also. But if I think they're going to sell it, it's because there's constantly some kind of, people
drama.
Screaming about, yes. And you never can please everyone. There's always going to be demands. And especially from certain people on Twitter. And I just don't think that some of the new things like the coffee shop, and all that are selling
coffee shop
as well as other things would. And I think that eventually when you're going to be having these people demand the moon constantly, and no matter what you do, I mean, they're going in after like Critical Role and everything else.
They're coming up. Yes, that's their crowd. They're coming after Critical Role.
So it got to get to the point where they're just like, I just want to be done with it just because I'm tired of dealing with this shit. That's my thing. But also the fact that Hasbro right now, as it's been going to be pointed out in these articles, that's what they have going for them. And if they lose that, then what?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting. But I was just sitting there thinking, like, back in my day, we had the Dragonlance Chronicles, and now we've got the Man Bun Chronicles. And it's so weird because, Critical Role was pretty instrumental, I think, in putting 5e on the map.
Now it's Drago and Lance's Chronicles. The college.
In college.
With the coffee shop.
And I mean, It's funny because we've got these activist types that are playing D&D now and trying to enforce their sensibilities on the company as a whole and demanding that the company bend the knee. And it would be hilarious to me if they said, you know what, let's just sell it all to China. And then you can then see what you effing get.
Yeah, they might, like you said, if it's up and they want to sell it before it comes back down, that makes sense. And if it was only that, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
But it's not only that.
Yes.
That's where I'm coming from.
Okay, so let's go to the Hollywood Reporter. Again, we missed this. It was a couple days ago. Hasbro activist investor. And we'll talk about that because their activism page went missing.
Yes, it did.
But we found a link to a story that has their activism statement in it. Alta Fox Capital Management has unveiled an investor's presentation that argues Hasbro, set to be led by CEO Chris Cox, is now a Wizards of the Coast business that also happens to make toys.
Sorry, I can't get past his name being Chris Cox.
Chris Cox.
Dick is running Hasbro. Anyway.
While nominating its own directors. I think, Brian Goldner kind of ruled Hasbro with an iron fist, and with him gone, I think it's going to be chaos.
Well, maybe he'll rule with an iron cock.
An iron cock. Oh my God, that could be his D&D character, Iron Cock. Yeah. Hasbro activist investor Altafox Capital Management has unveiled an investor presentation that nominates 5 candidates to stand for election to the Toymakers Board of Directors and urges a spinoff of Wizards of the Coast.
But don't they have like a tiny percentage?
2.5%.
And they're demanding that they get... Okay,
Yep.
wow. Well, there's an iron cock right there. Anyway, sorry.
Hasbro engages in regular communication with its shareholders and welcomes constructive input to further the best interests of all shareholders, Hasbro said in a statement issued on Wednesday evening as it confirmed receiving the nomination notice. That was before the 100-page investors presentation entitled The Case to Repair Hasbro
100-page. Wow, that's a lot of information.
Was published online early on Thursday. The toymaker giant added it has met with Altafox to better understand its views on the company's strategy and will review its nominees ahead of the 2022 annual meeting.
Okay, so that's why they're putting nominees out. Otherwise, I was like, what? Okay, that makes sense.
Altafox, which has a 2.5% stake in Hasbro worth around $325 million.
That's pretty good for 2.5%.
That's pretty good, yeah. Argues the toymaker's brand blueprint strategy, where the media player produces movies and TV shows through Entertainment One with Paramount, is little more than a generous term for empire building without financial discipline. Ouch. And that significant change in strategic direction is needed. We have a vote of no confidence in Cox.
Right, but okay, well, their idea is to, well, there's a lot of people on Twitter who have voted no confidence in Cox. Anyway, so on their idea is to take the one thing that's making money and spin it off into their company. But then what's their idea? What are they going to do with Hasbro after they do that?
I don't know. That's a good point. I don't know, because Hasbro is the largest toy manufacturer on the planet. Now, Mattel is making a comeback. Mattel was in really bad shape.
Oh, then they're pissing off the fans. It's not going to get too far.
Yeah, Mattel, we did a video about that. They're going around copyright striking fan channels. That's not a good look. But they actually have made a comeback. Now, a lot of toy companies, to be fair, have made a comeback, especially in board games during the pandemic.
Yes.
What happens when we're on the other side of this?
And Hasbro, they're the ones that own, like, a lot of the board game companies.
They do.
So that's probably helping, but...
Parker Brothers, Milton Bradley.
Yeah, they're the ones that bought those up, but...
Mattel has, like, Uno and some other...
Yeah, I know, but Hasbro has the bigger ones.
Yeah, they do. The activist investor in its presentation takes aim at Hasbro's acquisitions of E1. The expensive and speculative E1 acquisition for $4.6 billion in 2019 was not required to make a Magic the Gathering TV show or D&D movie and saddled the company with billions in debt, which years later it's still working to repay. This reinvestment capital could have gone into further developing core WotC IP. So
well, that's a valid point.
They bought a movie studio because Hasbro, and that was a Brian Goldner thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Brian Goldner did a lot of things that were just like, why'd you do that?
Brian Goldner wanted to turn Hasbro into Disney. I mean, that was his thing. It was like, we're gonna go out and make movies of Transformers and G.I. Joe and My Little Pony, and some of the stuff stuck, and some of the stuff stunk.
Yay! We didn't plan that.
We actually agreed on that. And, Transformers has really been a mixed bag. The movies have been a mixed bag. I liked Bumblebee, but
basically like Bumblebee. We'll stop there.
Bumblebee, and I'm not real sure about the Rise of the Beasts. I'm like, we're going from G1 to Beast Wars, and like We need like at least a G1 trilogy, right?
Well, it makes sense though, because they're trying to go for the 90s now.
Time to rape the 90s. The activist investor calls for the majority of Hasbro's value to be unlocked by spinning off Wizards of the Coast, which will in turn boost Hasbro's shareholder value. In our view, this is an incredible and misunderstood asset with a long growth runway that is worthy of a premium valuation multiple.
I think eventually it's going to, like you said, it's going up, and eventually it's going to have to plateau or come down.
Yeah. And I think, there are a couple things going on with D&D right now. I think one, some of the old school fans are leaving. That it hasn't hurt them much during the pandemic, but eventually I think there's going to be some long-term damage.
I think eventually it's going to be more competition is going to start showing up, and it's going to cut into it. Because if people have a choice to play an actual campaign or play, let's work at the coffee shop, which one do you think they're going to take?
Yeah, exactly.
Not everybody wants to go to prom and college again.
There have been a lot of lawsuits, including lawsuits between the Dragonlance authors and Wizards of the Coast. It could be that something happens here. Now, this is ICV2. And, they did an article a couple years ago, and people said, hey, they're crazy. They said, we're crazy. We said, look, Hasbro might sell Wizards off. Mm-hmm. And I pointed out the other week, I'm like, yeah, they're bringing all these video game people in at Wizards of the Coast. I'm like, something is absolutely up.
Well, if nothing else, the fact that everybody's covering this is it's going to bring eyeballs to look at the situation. So even if it turns out that's a stupid idea, or if it's a good idea, no matter what, everybody's going to look into it now because it's getting all kinds of press coverage.
Yeah. So anyway, this right here, they talk about the sales. Mm-hmm. Wizards sold over 950 million in tabletop games in 2021. Tabletop game sales grew 44% in 2021. Of course, the pandemic definitely helped. The division that includes WotC and digital gaming accounted for 72% of Hasbro's operating profit for the year.
There's my point. If it's 72% of their operating profit and they spin it off or they sell it off, what's going to happen to Hasbro proper? It's not going to work because they absolutely need it to stay afloat. So it doesn't make any sense to turn around and split the company.
Yeah, it's weird, though, that this is coming up now. But there are a lot of people out there actually saying that they don't think they're going to sell them because they're too valuable to the company.
Yeah, they need it. If it's 72% of your operating whatever, you probably don't want to cut that off and send it to another company.
So Alta Fox is basically saying that Hasbro is dead weight to Wizards of the Coast at this point.
Right. And the investors would do better to be backing Wizards of the Coast. Yeah,
so this is really interesting. Something is going to happen.
Something definitely is happening because why is it being covered everywhere? It's a 100-page thing right ahead of their investor call, but they only owe like a tiny percent of the stock. So why are everybody covering it, making it a big deal unless there's more there than what at face value?
Yeah, it's interesting. They have an interview here, and they're talking about how the brand is damaged. That Magic is damaged, Wizards of the Coast is damaged.
Well, it doesn't help that they're alienating fans right and left. They're being very it's turning a lot of people off. Well, they're taking a lot of people in. They're turning a lot of people off. And the thing is the idea that they keep saying that we have to change it to make it so it's for everyone when it was already for everyone before isn't helping them any.
Yeah, so they're saying that look, Magic has been around for a while. Yes. Dungeons and Dragons has been around for a while. They're profitable. But they said what Hasbro has done with this asset is they've distracted them from investing in their core franchises. They've tasked them, for example, with creating a G.I. Joe video game. They've tasked them with creating a Transformers card game. Yeah. They've tasked them with doing these various things. They have not created value, we believe, will not.
So basically, didn't stick, and they're taken away from making new campaigns so we can sell more stuff.
Yeah, they're basically.
That's a valid point.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I thought it was weird. I thought it was really weird when I think it was last year. They're like, oh yeah, we're Wizards of the Coast. We're known for tabletop games, Magic and D&D, and now we're going to turn around and do G.I. Joe video games.
No, I'll tell you what they're doing, because they know that 72% of their operating capital is coming from Wizards of the Coast and from this, and they want to make sure they diversify that so that if they would get rid of Wizards of the Coast, or if it would be spun off or sold by the investors' demand, they'd have something else. They wouldn't be cutting everything off.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think they were also trying to work up some curbside appeal, too. Mm-hmm. Again, getting more video game people. Because at the time when they were doing this, they were probably looking at like Blizzard and being like, oh, wouldn't D&D make a good addition to...
At the time when they were doing this, the other guy wasn't put in charge that was from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's not going to get rid of his thing when he's in charge of it.
No, unless he makes sure he goes with it.
Right.
You know.
Which I don't think that's the way it sounds to me. Why would you take the job if you plan on leaving with it?
It's just...
We're going to argue this one.
We are. It's weird that he comes in, right? This is Cox. Cox comes in. He was running Wizards of the Coast. He comes in, and he came from Microsoft. And he immediately brings his friends from Microsoft in, and then all of a sudden, this investor is like, well, we need to spin WotC off from... I don't know. It just feels like there's something else going on here. Like,
I'm pretty really good not to make jokes right now about Cox and his friends, and something gets off.
Cox is gonna fuck the company over.
I'm trying to be.
It's weird. I mean, I pointed out the other week. It's weird that he comes in and he's bringing his friends from Microsoft in, and it almost feels, because I mean, look, I've been at companies. He might be
bringing them in to help him run Hasbro, because he knows that he needs people in there know what the hell they're doing.
But video game people.
Unless he's planning on turning Wizards of the Coast into video games.
That's exactly what I think he's doing.
Right, but he's not going to separate it from Hasbro.
No, or they want it to be a package deal. Like, we're going to make sure we have G.I. Joe and Transformer video games, and we're making Magic and D&D video games and all that junk. And then, hey, Microsoft, why don't you come buy this whole package? But then what's Microsoft going to do with toys? Microsoft doesn't want to make toys. They basically be like, oh yeah, we'll take Transformers and G.I. Joe and My Little Pony and we'll do something with them and license out the toys to somebody else. I mean...
Yeah, but why would they do that when they lose the name? I don't know. To me, why couldn't you absorb the company and then still keep the Hasbro with those people, that guy run Hasbro, and Microsoft just be the overlord?
Well, something's up.
I mean, there's definitely something up, but I'm gonna disagree with you in the fact that I don't think they're gonna try to sell it somewhere, because they can't. They will not, unless someone absorbs the whole thing, and then like Microsoft absorbs the entire thing, and then they can take the video games to what they do best and let that other guy just run the toys.
Well,
I don't see them separating them, because they cannot afford to.
Well, that could be the thing. It could be that, or did he realize that Hasbro, they were planning on selling Wizards of the Coast. Hasbro isn't really worth as much, but we're gonna embed ourselves into Wizards, so we go as a package deal. Like, the whole thing goes.
I don't know.
I'm
just trying to wrap my head around the fact that Wizards of the Coast is like 72% of their money. I just can't wrap my head around this.
Bad. I mean,
they're
doing well.
That must be really, really, really popular all around, because that's a huge.
Yeah, I mean, it blew up over the pandemic. A lot of people getting into D&D. They've been pushing it. Obviously, shows like Stranger Things.
Well, I think that, and like all these channels that are doing, like, we're doing a campaign and everybody's watching it now. They're doing cartoons based of it. I'm sure that brings a lot of interest, but. It's like, wow, that's like a huge uptick. But again, what comes up, like you said, must come down. And It's only going to stay up so long until it's not long. People don't care anymore. And then it's going to plateau and then go.
Well, especially if we get a lot of new people, like a lot of normies come into the tabletop scene, and they're like...
You're not allowed to. They quiz you when you walk in and tell you, do you know anything about this? Or you can't play with us.
It's so weird, because I'm a lapsed gamer. And when I tried to get the kids into gaming, I did not realize that tabletop had fallen to Tumblr. And I think a lot of people were like, yeah, I used to play D&D when I was a kid. Let's play D&D again. So, we're locked in our houses. Let's, I want to play D&D with the kids. Let's go buy the basics at whatever. And once they realize that the scene is like completely mental at this point, they might be like, hell no.
I don't know.
No.
If anything takes it down, it's going to be that they get rid of it. It's going to be the people, like, nothing's good enough. Nothing's inclusive enough. Nothing's, you have this campaign that's supposed to be diverse and inclusive, but you didn't include this, like, really obscure, like, I'm a person who has this 1%, disease of some kind, but you didn't include me, so it's not inclusive enough, and constantly screaming and screaming and screaming, and they might just be like, I'm tired of it. Because when you court that audience, you get that audience, the good and the bad. That's the only reason I think they'd sell it. I mean, other than to go to, like you said, like Microsoft, to see if they could just take over the gaming part and then let somebody else run the toy part. But Hasbro itself can't get rid of it, because they'll be up the creek without a paddle.
Yeah, this might get ugly. Actually, I don't know.
I don't know.
We'll see what happens. Anyway,
the Toy Wars.
The Toy Wars. That'll be another episode of the toys that made us.
The Toy Wars.
The Toy Wars. Alta Fox Capital. they had a statement. They had, past tense, a statement on their website talking about activism.
Right, because I was like, why do they keep calling them activists? I couldn't figure it out.
Everybody's like, activist investors, and you go out there, it's gone.
But this is a big nothing comment, though.
It is a nothing comment. AltaFox does not enjoy playing the role of activist, but if management teams or boards attempt to take advantage of minority shareholders for their own benefit, we have an obligation to our own LPs and are prepared to take a stand. Now,
But I think that means more like the minority shares, meaning that they only have a small percentage of shares.
That's my takeaway, too.
I don't understand why they took that down. That's like such a nothing.
Because everybody, activist investors, and nobody's citing the activism.
Yeah, a lot of them are saying it, but they're not saying why you calling them that. Because they had an activist like thing on their site. They called it, and it's stupid. It's just stupid.
I think in the title of this video, I'm going to put activist in quotes, like activist investor, like. Okay, show me where. Like, nobody's heard of these people. They're like, we own 2% of Hasbro.
Well, I gotta tell you that we only own 2%, but here's a 100-page report on how we can change it, and we're calling for 5 new board members. I mean, I'll give them. There you go. They're the balls to the cock right there. Boom.
Hasbro let Wizards go. The AltaFox path to 100% plus upside. Free the Wizards. Free the Wizards. Wait, they have a website? freethewizards.com.
Okay. I know you're going to go there.
We're going to go there.
We're going to go to freewizards.com.
Free the Wizards. Disclaimer, views represent all Fox. Okay. Oh, this is a video with the thing.
Feedback. There you go. You can give them feedback. You can watch their video. You can watch their presentation and give them feedback.
Yeah, so this is interesting. You can go to freethewizards.com, but they're basically saying that Hasbro would be better off.
They're just saying that they're taking too much attention away from Wizards of the Coast to make other things that Hasbro owns, or to do tie-ins with what Hasbro owns, and they need to spend all their money focusing on Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I thought it was because back in the day, I mean, it's one thing, we've talked a lot about, TSR on this channel, and the one thing TSR did, beyond Dungeons and Dragons back in the day is come up with new game systems and new games, and none of them took off as much as D&D, but like, WotC is just like, yeah, it's just Magic and D&D, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And we'll just make D&D something it isn't, like, coffee shop adventures, I don't know. But you can go out there and read it if you want to. It looks pretty dry, but Free the Wizards.
Yep, there you go. I'm bored already, so.
All right, so we got to wrap it up?
Yep.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.
Bye.